Hi everyone, and welcome to my first official wrap-up on Booktube. I am Sadie, also known as Sadie Ruin, on Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads, I think, library thing, Ravelry, wherever else. Pretty much anywhere you can find me, it's Blue Ruin or Sadie Ruin, and for the most part, it's Sadie Ruin because Blue Ruin's already taken. I am here to do my wrap-up. I decided to do it ahead of the Diversithon reading because I figure that could be a whole nother episode. So I already had 6 books anyway. Let's just jump into what I finished here in January, shall we? The first book I finished is Banished in Hiawatha, the story of the Canton Asylum for Insane Indians by Carla Joynson. It looks something like this. Now, it's a big-ish book. However, I would like to point out that the majority of the end here is all appendices. Lots and lots of appendices. You know what that means? That means if you like academic books, this is a great book for you. If you're interested in mental health or Aboriginal health or early asylums, again, very good choice for you. However, if you are interested in own stories or hearing someone's own experience in this, you're definitely not going to get it. It is dry, it is academic. I'm very interested in how Aboriginal people were treated and their plight prior to current day, so pretty much anything I can get my hands on I'm going to read. It was very well researched, it was very well put together. I do feel that at times it erred on the side of the colonizer, but I mean, that's a quibble. That's a quibble I'm going to make, and I often make because I myself am Aboriginal. Either way, I would recommend it to a few people. It's also got some blurbs on the back, and I'm pretty sure I want to pick up the books by the people who are blurbing on the back, so I also consider that a win. Next up was a reread, and it was a reread because my Goodreads, for some reason, I was scanning in parts of my library, as one does when one has time, and this one showed up and it said it was my first read book of 2017. So I couldn't figure out how to fix that on Goodreads, so I was like, oh, it's small, I'll just reread it, and that's what I did. It's Exquisite Corpse by Poppy Z. Bright. Now, this is a reread for me, and it made me wonder what kind of teenager I must have been, because this was one of my favorite books as a teenager. It is a story that follows a serial killer who basically figures out a way to escape prison, and then he leaves London, where he was, and goes to New Orleans, where he meets up with another serial killer, and calamity ensues. There's also a lot of homosexuality. There are many different characters, ranging from Vietnamese to British to white American, Black American, and I find one thing about Poppy Bright is that they really know how to write some gruesome horror. If you like gruesome horror, you'll love this. If you want an LGBTQ plus read, this is also very friendly towards that. If you like horror with LGBT themes, then again, very good one for you. If you shy away from horror and gore, then this is probably not the read for you. I still enjoyed it, but I was kind of surprised at myself that I didn't find it more it wasn't as hard to read when I was younger as it is now, and maybe that has something to do with growing up in Canada and then moving to the United States and the culture differences there. I'm not 100% sure why it affects me differently, but I still really enjoyed it, and I do recommend it, as I recommend all of Poppy's work. Just a big Poppy big Poppy fan. Next up, I finished Four Souls by Louise Erdrich. Now, this is a continuation of Fleur and Nanapush, who are characters that I saw in Tracks, which I previously read. However, this is a standalone, as is Tracks. Just because she recycles her characters and they all take place in the same area does not necessarily mean you need to read them in order. Now, I have heard a lot on Booktube, as I have been maniacally watching it lately, about Joseph Boyden. As a native Canadian, also an Indian, First Nations, whatever you choose to call us or you choose to identify as, he has come under a lot of scrutiny within Canada lately because he is the Aboriginal community isn't as welcoming to say, hey, he's one of ours and he is telling our voice, because he is very far removed from it. This book is not far removed. Louise Erdrich grew up and is very much a part of the First Nations community. Now, the story itself follows two separate households, Nanapush's household back on the reserve and Fleur Pillager, who moves to the St. Paul, Minneapolis area during the early, when they were colonizing, when they were pioneering, you know what I mean. So this is also a tale of revenge. Two people are seeking out revenge for two very separate things, and somehow their stories become intertwined. It's very beautifully written. You get a sense of the time, you get a sense of the urgency, and you also have some duality of views. Here you have a purely reservation story, here you have a white story, and an Aboriginal person or First Nations, Indian, whatever, trying to blend in or trying to acclimate to this white world while they're both trying to achieve some sort of revenge. This is definitely a revenge book. So we have three major narrators going on. One is a white woman. One, of course, is an Aboriginal woman living in a white world. And then we have the narrator of Nanapush, who is a man who is still living on the reserve. And in the end, they all come together. And quite frankly, if you enjoy reading Aboriginal or reserve-style books, this is definitely one to pick up. You can't go wrong with Louise Erdrich. I've been calling her Erdrich for so long, and then I noticed the R, and now I feel horrible. That's just how my mind works. Next up is a book I started last year, but finished this month, and it is book 6 of the Wheel of Time series, Lord of Chaos, by Robert Jordan. Now, I'm not going to get into what happens in book 6 because it's book 6 of a 14-book installment. The last two books, of course, were co-written with Brandon Sanderson because Robert Jordan passed away. Brandon Sanderson was handpicked to finish the series with all the notes and with Robert Jordan's wife's help and blessing. So, just a smidgen about it. It's a high fantasy series about a group of boys who start out in the small countryside, and basically it's one of those young man is destined for greatness. They go off on a quest. What I will say about this is there are incredibly strong female characters that are beautifully written. They're not damsels in distress, and they're not running around kicking people in long skirts. They may be in long skirts, but they aren't, it's not patronizing. It's extremely well written as far as the women characters go. The male characters are great. There's a lot of magic. There's a fair bit of realism. Again, I fall more towards liking The Lord of the Rings than anything else, and this really feels comfortable to me. So one of my resolutions this year is to finish this series, of which I have up to book 12 anyway. So I will be starting book 7 shortly after I'm done reading for Diversathon. So if you like high fiction, high fantasy, that is a thing for you. After that, I started and finished Ready Player One by Ernest Cline, and I am going to preface this review with, I'm sorry. I don't do sci-fi very often, and I didn't like this book. I know a million other people loved this book, that this book was magical, and I know it's got like a 4.5 star rating on Goodreads, but I couldn't get into it. And I love the 80s. I love pop culture, I love the 80s, and I love trivia. All of that stuff played right into my wheelhouse. When I started reading it, I loved it. References to John Hughes and Pretty in Pink, and I'm catching all the references, and of course, I too could do the War Games thing. But you lost me on the video games, which were way too much referenced. Like, I've played video games and I have many gamer friends who collect the consoles and all of the games, and even they would probably get a little lost on all of this. The characters were two-dimensional to me. I didn't really give a crap about our main character. I don't even remember what his name is. How sad is that? I just finished this book, and I don't even remember. I know that H is H, and there was Artemis, and apparently I only care about the female characters in this book. And even then, the last chapter, complete wash. It didn't need to be in there. I felt like there was some romance thrown in for absolutely no purpose other than to throw romance in. And how cliche is it that you've got, like, did he feel the need to just throw a person of color in there? And what's the deal with making her a fat Canadian who has a birthmark on her face, okay? Like, could you get a little more convoluted? Could you call her a beast a little more? Like, and why is she the only person who has their weight listed? And why is 160 pounds Rubenesque, okay? Because I'm over 200 pounds, some dude called me Rubenesque, I would smack him. Like, there are so many problems with this book for me, and I'm sorry if you loved it. If you loved it, be my guest, but so many problems. Make it stop. The last book I finished this last night. It's Haunted Tales of the Grotesque by Joyce Carol Oates. Now look at the cover for a second here. When I picked this up, and I picked it up a while ago, first, one, I don't do short stories very often because I'm really picky. The only person I've ever read who has good short stories is Margaret Atwood and maybe Poppy Bright from Wormwood, but that's it. Like, I don't do short stories. Even Neil Gaiman, I got trigger warnings. I still haven't finished it. I think I read 4 of the stories and I was like, I can't handle it. I just don't do short stories. But I figured, okay, short horror stories. I like horror stories. I like reading short horror stories because then I'm freaked out for just a little bit of time, so I can freak myself out in small intervals. It's great, right? Haunted, Tales of the Grotesque. I'm thinking, okay, maybe she's trying to inspire some sort of maudlin haunted, like maybe it'll be a Mysteries of Udolpho or a Castle of Otranto, or maybe I'll even get some of the Monk. No. If you go into this book thinking you're going to get any horror or any suspense, heaven help you, because that's not going to happen. These women are haunted. They're all stories about women, first of all, which is fine, but maybe we should say something about that. I don't know. Joyce Carol Oates is very into the whole feminism thing, the Foxfire, Dirty Blonde, etc. She tends to tackle a lot of feminist issues, but yeah. No mention that this is primarily tales about women, but they're all haunted. Haunted. In an academic sense, they're haunted by choices or decisions that they've made that have somehow influenced them, or in this very vague, obscure way that even 19th century Victorian horror wouldn't grab a hold of. You know, the story that this is all based off of, Haunted, that haunted story, that is actually slightly horrorish. It has the inkling and inclination that it is going to be some sort of gothic fiction, which is fine. And I figured, okay, gothic fiction, I can keep writing it. No, it just went downhill from there. Some of them are just going mentally ill, and I don't necessarily think that is grotesque or haunted. I think that's something we need to discuss and help. So the grotesque. What is grotesque about this? I don't necessarily know that there is anything grotesque about this. I think she tried to be grotesque in some situations by indicating that there was a child who could talk to its mother and physically and verbally abuse it. I don't think that's very haunted, and I don't find that very grotesque. I just find it wrong. So while the cover led me to believe something and the title led me to believe something, effectively, I got a bunch of short stories about women who made choices that they may or may not like and don't really know how to deal with it. There were some stories that tried really hard to be Victorian Gothic, and they almost pulled it off. But in the grand scheme of things, unless you really dig short stories and you really dig Joyce Carol Oates, stay the heck away from this book, because I am unhauling it now. So that's everything I have. I will be doing 2 haul videos in the next week, and I will be doing the Diversithon following the week, and then we'll be moving into February. I hope you enjoyed my first month's wrap up, and I look forward to seeing you next month.